Ladies and gents, I'm Rex, and this is the 1918 flu pandemic, Leviathan, Extra History Part 5 by the channel Extra Hits. This is a global pandemic. The flu jumped ship, literally, onto the docks of American Samoa, of South Africa, of Alaska, of India. The 1918 flu infects every human continent. Damn, it was a global pandemic, right? I mean, Spanish flu was not some, a continent or two continent type of thing. No, it was global. It went everywhere. But it's surprising that how very few people talk about it or know about it basically, because it was dwarfed by World War One, right? Around that time, anybody talks about World War One, but nobody knows about the Spanish flu, right? Even I found out while reacting to one of the videos when I started this channel. So yeah, that was something. So let's watch this one. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe. Check out the reaction there's a link in the description. Check out the cards for different playlists, check out the end cards, and yeah, let's watch it.
USS Leviathan. Splash. A body hits the water. Days earlier, armed military police had herded troops onto the Leviathan, sealing them in watertight compartments. It was quarantine, of a sort. If one trooper had the flu, it would only affect the bunkmates sealed in with him. It spread anyway. There is no more room in the sick bay, the mess hall, or any of the other makeshift hospitals. Patients lie on deck in the sun and wind, and bodies only have one place to go. At the rail,
this is just effed up, right? First of all, war alone is effed up. The conditions in the war are already effed up. The way soldiers are doing the transport and everything. People already have resources, finite resources, because, they need as many people as they can, and usually resources are not enough. So they are already in effed up situation during the war, and now the flu, holy shit.
Chaplain mutters a prayer. Splash. Another man disappears into the Atlantic. Splash. In 6 weeks, the war will be over. Splash. Leviathan isn't the only plague ship. There are many like it. The New Zealand transports HMS Tahiti and Mantua deliver the silent visitor to Africa. Infected ships pass the flu to dock workers each time they stop to take on coal. From there, it rides the rail lines into the interior, then spreads to the countryside on bicycles, horseback, or by car. Each of the 3 waves of the virus, the mild first wave, the deadly second wave, and the less lethal third wave, radiate across the globe. It storms every continent, sparing only Antarctica. Tracking the disease from the Surgeon General's office in Washington, D.C., Welch's friend and replacement, Victor Vaughn, expresses alarm at the flu's progress. If this epidemic continues at its mathematical rate of acceleration, he writes, civilization could easily disappear from the face of the earth within a matter of a few more weeks. He looks at his map.
That's a grim letter, right? Imagine sending the letter, somebody reads it, like in a matter of weeks, entire civilization will disappear. Holy shit, that's big.
Kimberley, South Africa. When people speak about the flu, they'll always remember the sound of hooves and wagon wheels. It's the sound of the collection wagons, heavy with corpses. The people of Kimberley knew it was coming. Railway workers tracked its progress inland on the rail line. It advanced 1,000 miles within a week. Kimberley is a diamond mining city, the largest in South Africa, and people here live and work in close quarters. Migrant laborers sleep in crammed concrete bunkhouses famous for spreading sickness.
Oh no.
People begin to fear each other. When someone sniffles in a shop, people turn away, veins turning to ice.
Oh god, that is that is so close to home, right? What happened last year? I know the incidents even in my neighborhood, where people used to go to, during the lockdowns, there's specific hours, right, where you can go to the shop and take out whatever groceries and things, medical things. I remember somebody in the, I guess, medical shop just went there and had cold, not the actual flu, but cold. And he just, sneezed there. And everybody was just, oh, fuck that. And every entire shop was empty. Everybody was outside. This is way close to the home, man.
Distinctive scent of the flu is like straw, they say. You can tell infected houses by the smell. Fear leads to dark places. Whites begin blaming their black neighbors for the disease, and
Of
within
course.
5 years, their concern with hygiene will put forward a law that bans black South Africans from entering urban areas without a
Apartheid?
pass. It's another brick in the rising wall of
Ah.
apartheid. Across South Africa, the trauma brings several village prophets to the forefront, preaching religious and social revival while describing visions they've had while in the grip of Spanish flu. Some later ally with the African National Congress to fight for political rights. They will be jailed or locked in insane asylums.
Damn.
The flu, with no concern for politics, rages on. It's good that the mining city of Kimberley is full of excavation equipment because they'll need it for the graves.
Damn, that's grim.
2,500 miners die in the autumn wave, a quarter of the city's working population. By the time the epidemic is over, 9% of Kimberley's citizens are buried in the diamond sheltering earth. The country, the worst hit in Africa, will lose 500,000 people. But another colony will see at least 20 times more death. India. Traditionally, Indians cremate their dead on the riverbank and release their ashes into the Ganges. But there's nothing left to burn. Dead bodies clog the wide river, gathering in clumps. India is no stranger to outbreaks. Just 2 decades
What? India had the worst hit from this? How the hell I don't know about that. Nobody talks about it here. This is surprising, man. Spanish flu was global. It had a real impact. Millions died, right? But nobody talks about it ever. I get it, it's a century old, but still in the history book at least it would be something like, something striking. And I live in India, right? If India had the India had the highest death rate from this, I'm surprised nobody talks about it here.
before, the country had battled Black Plague. But the behavior of the British colonials during that time had made Indians wary of Western medicine. They'd herded people into health camps, burned personal possessions, and sprayed carbolic acid into homes. In other places, they did nothing at all. So even as flu whipped through the country, British officials offered little help and Indians accepted even less. Western medicine was largely reserved for the rich colonials or those in the cities. But there was an organization that tried to help, and often they were the only ones serving rural areas. The independence movement.
Yeah.
In the rural villages, college-trained activists deliver medicine via bicycle or horse. Much of it is indigenous folk medicine that just managed symptoms.
I like how we drew the hair. That this feels so Indian right now.
But given that every Western institute, from Rockefeller to Pasteur in Paris to Koch in Germany, had failed to produce a cure, it was no worse treatment than the ill-received in the US or Britain.
Yeah,
The
it makes
message
sense.
was clear. Articles in the Indian press denounced colonial neglect, saying British authorities cared little for Indians, and in their hour of need, the only ones who stepped up were the revolutionaries. They had the grassroots support they'd struggled so long to secure. And so, India took another step closer to revolution.
Yeah, this is 1918, right? So I guess by this point, Indian population was already like fed up with the British rule, right? So of course they didn't accept any medicine from them, and the independence movement, right? All the revolutionaries basically saw that as just the right moment to basically do something about it. So they just delivered all the medicine they could. To show the people, see, British are not doing anything, but we join our cause for the independence.
Its independence movement gaining legitimacy even as one of its most predominant leaders, Mahatma Gandhi, was out of action. The virus nearly killed him. According to recent estimates,
Yeah, but I bet the idea of sending medicines everywhere probably was Gandhi's idea, because Gandhi was a lawyer. He went to South Africa to study how to become a lawyer. So he already had somewhat of a political type of mind, right? Just what is the moment to strike? What is a perfect moment to do something to gain more support from the people?
between 14 and 20 million Indians died from the flu, the most from any single nation.
Damn, it's
And
like
yet the
it's not even a comparison.
died from the flu, the most.
Look at that. Second was USA. It's like 675,000. That's like nothing compared to 20 million. I'm surprised that nobody here talks about Spanish flu, because that's a big number.
Most from any single nation. And yet the flu killed on, affecting each country in its own way. Japan called it sumo disease, since the first outbreak exploded after a public wrestling match. There, the wearing of face masks became...
That's so bad for sumos, man. They're like, okay, I get it. You know, this is where the first disease came from here. I get it, but don't call it sumo disease, man. We already have bad rap right now.
So ingrained that it remains a practice today. It possibly killed 4 million on the island of Java alone. It raged through Russia and Mexico, both of which were in the flames of civil war. By 1919, it had penetrated even the most isolated regions. The Wood River, Alaska.
Damn.
Coast Guardsmen step onto the riverbank, calling out to the Yupik village. No one answers. They're in one of the...
How the fuck did he went all the way to Alaska? Wait a minute. I'm pretty sure World War I didn't stretch all the way to Alaska, right? Otherwise, I don't see why would Alaska would be affected like that. I guess Alaska is Alaska has real good natural resources, so maybe America needed resources at the time because of the war. So because of that, people going to Alaska, coming back, probably spread it. Who knows?
Most remote places on Earth. Here, it's not unusual to meet people who still think Alaska is part of the Russian Empire, ruled by the Tsar. Now, there is no Russian Empire, much less a Tsar.
Yeah.
And though news of the revolution hadn't made it, the flu had. They've heard reports of devastation at the inland villages. The disease strikes native populations especially hard. The guardsmen are here with a doctor to offer medical aid and assess the impact. But the village seems deserted. Their ensign hears something moving in one of the earth houses and opens the door to investigate. He slams it and backs away, calling for a rifle. He then smashes in a window and fires into the house again and again and again.
What?
He only stops when everything inside no longer moves. Then they douse the village with kerosene and burn it to the ground. For the rest of his life, he will never forget what he saw. 3 enormous sled dogs, starving and feral, fighting over the bones of a dead family.
Whoa.
As the guardsmen discovered in Alaska, Spanish flu proved to be...
Ah, man, I don't blame the guy. I mean, it's when you just say that, the family was dead and the dogs were eating it, it still doesn't capture the real scene of it, right? You need to understand that the flu is going on, pandemic, entire villages are dying. So put that image in your head where they are approaching a village, but probably most of them are dead. You open the door. This is already grim scenario because the flu is going on. Spanish flu is everywhere, and that the entire village feels abandoned. And then you open and you see the corpse of the families, right? And the dogs are eating the bones and things. That is way too grim, right? That's way too much. So I don't blame the guy to panic and just shoot left and right. Holy shit. Basically during the Black Death and all the times, the major flus throughout the history, the flus are so effed up that the flu alone causes the scene that is worse than war sometimes. Because at least in the war you can see the enemy coming, right? When basically some emperor or some king or something kills the entire town, they have some idea that this might happen. But with the flu is unexpected. Suddenly it hits, you don't know where it's going, or is it going or not, is it flu or not, because around that time nobody has that much of scientific knowledge. So when something like Black Death spreads, you see people just left and right falling down, entire families dying, entire villages dying. You see that everybody's just lying around dead. That is way too grim, man.
Especially deadly to native people with isolated immune systems. It slew its way across the Pacific, hopping from island to island out of New Zealand. In Fiji, 5% of the population dead. In Tonga, 10%. In Vanuatu, it killed 90% of people in some villages, wiping out 20 unique languages. And then it reached Samoa. Pago Pago, American Samoa. Commander John Poyer, the naval governor of American Samoa, liked to follow radio reports on the wire. It gave him news from the war, from home. He could keep his finger on things. Suddenly, one item stuck out to him: Spanish flu in New Zealand. He'd been governor of American Samoa for about 4 years and knew Western diseases posed special danger to Pacific Islanders. And with New Zealand having taken neighboring Western Samoa from the Germans, there was probably ship traffic passing between Auckland and Western Samoa's port of Apia. Poyer radioed his sister territory. Why, yes, they said. There had been a ship from New Zealand. And yeah, there was some local disease flaring up. Why? Poyer sent an order.
The guy's eyes are probably open wide, and the other guy from the other side is like, "Hello, you there? You still there? What's happening?"
To the docks. Close the port. No matter who comes, deny them the right to land. Dock them at the far end of the pier and move anyone ill to Navy quarantine vessels. Work with the villages to form shore patrols and catch those who try to sneak in. He radios a warning to his counterpart in Western Samoa and offers quarantine and hospital ships if needed. The governor of Western Samoa, offended by the aid offer, hangs up. 1 week later, a mail ship arrives from Western Samoa. A U.S. Navy vessel intercepts it. They can't land, the captain says, nor will Samoa or any American mail ship in its port except outside letters. They must return to Apia. Furious, the governor of Western Samoa cuts radio contact entirely, freezing diplomatic relations. By then, people in Western Samoa are beginning to die sitting up in their homes. Fields go fallow as entire families are unable to walk. There will be famine next year.
That governor is an asshole, right? Anybody who has, position of real power, which you can govern entire areas, and you act like this without, actually having an open mind, putting your ego aside and actually reading the situation. If you don't do that shit, you just let your ego go and just get offended like that when you're responsible for large amount of people and land, you're just a massive asshole. I hate it whenever that happens.
A whole generation of village elders gets snuffed out. 22% of Western Samoa would die of Spanish flu,
22%,
including a third of the male population.
Holy shit.
American Samoa continued its quarantine until 1920, until the last reports of Spanish flu subsided. It would be the only place on Earth that registered no flu deaths.
Damn.
The fever was beginning to break.
That guy who basically was constantly listening to the radio was really effective, apparently. It's like, was it South Korea? Last year, South Korea was the one, right? Who immediately did the lockdown and started to check people on the airport. I think it was South Korea. I don't know. They had very less death, right? I don't know. I'm not in the loop, how many people lost who. It's already depressing world. I don't stay in loop in that. I'm pretty sure it was at the early times, at least, it was South Korea who basically, closed down everything and put a lockdown of some sort and started to check people from the airports. Yeah. Probably that was the 1918 flu pandemic, Leviathan. That is some badass name, right? Leviathan. A ship named Leviathan. That's already badass. I think it's some kind of a Hebrew name from, a Jewish book or something, but I don't know. Alright, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the Rick Sunday. There's a link in the description. Check out the cards or different places, the cards, and yeah, I'll see you next time.